Just fucking shirtless.
I said, "Are you comfortable with my dad bod?" And then you automatically start throwing shots. Did you hit record? Okay,
Yes,
we're
sir.
good. Okay. I just wanted to have the evidence. Just remember when you have to take your shirt off one day.
Never.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Coast, Volume 10, starring Rouse Snake Drain, Kyle Crosby of Louisiana Dread, and Blake Tauzin.
Back live in the studio, Kyle Crosby, the maniac of history, back at it.
Crazier than ever.
Crazier than ever.
I've been missing what you've been looking for. That don't make any sense. Let's start over.
What I found lately?
Yeah, what you found lately.
Were you hear about the Masonic coin?
Yeah, of course. You got like 4 billion views on TikTok.
It was 5 billion.
5 billion.
5 billion.
Damn, that's a lot of people.
No, everything's been going great since then. I haven't found anything like super incredible. I don't know. I've been diving into my my relic room. I'm about to have a big change in there. I'm moving it from one room to another, so I have a lot more room to find more stuff.
Nice. Well, I need to start this with a story because I was on the sofa for a long time and I had nothing to do but look up Louisiana history and ghost stories and all that kind of shit. And this is by far the craziest thing I've heard so far. And you know what? I read a lot of shit about this kind of stuff. And oddly enough, it's on the North Shore of all places, right? They have it's the story of they call it the Traveling Tombstone. Now I've seen some of the little police reports and stuff that they made for it, and there's just no rhyme or reason, no plausible reason how it happened. And I just think the whole thing in itself needs to be made into at least some aspect of a horror, or because I mean it's rooted in Louisiana history, no doubt, but at the same time, I mean it's something that you thought you would have heard growing up as a kid.
I've never heard of it. Traveling Tombstone.
It was I believe it was in the 80s. And no one can explain exactly what happened, but it's around Lacombe. And they have there's a graveyard, I think it's Fontaine Cemetery. I might be messing up that, but it's on like an isolated road, and people kind of just walk on the side. It's like the Crosby down in Bahia.
Swampy area, a lot of trees.
Kind of, not really, because it's on the North Shore, so it's more like solid ground because it's a little bit further inland. There's like marshy areas, but it's just buku trees for sure. But it's your typical like haunting, people driving by and I saw a ghost in the cemetery. People actually claimed that they saw a body come out of a grave. And then another story was that I saw just a ghost walking across the street, and while people driving there at night, and just these typical ghost stories. But this one has police involvement in it, so they got like police reports, and the story goes that it's one random night a guy's driving. It's about 3:00 in the morning, and he's driving on this road, and he sees an object right in the middle of it. He swerves out the way, and he goes outside to see what it was, and it's a tombstone standing straight up in the middle of the road.
Okay.
And he's just, all right, whatever. Gets back in the car, drives a little bit further to the smallest little town, and goes to the sheriff's station. Says, "Hey, they got an object in the middle of the road. You know, police, protect and serve.
Right.
Go remove that." So he leaves. Sheriff goes out, take a look. No tombstone. Gets back to the sheriff's station, and a deputy comes in, says that he saw a tombstone 8 miles behind the location of where the man saw it. Goes back, not there. A few days later, another police officer is just kind of driving by, and he sees the tombstone.
And they're all sitting on the highway?
It's one of them. It's on the highway.
It's really creepy when ghost stories are linked to police reports, because they won't go and make a report if someone's like, "Oh, I saw something outside my house." They'll be like, "Oh, okay." So they'll just put it down as like, "Oh, we just responded to a call." But if they're putting that stuff in the report, that means there's a lot of evidence behind it. I have a story about a tombstone too that came up missing. I'll tell you after.
So this deputy is going down the road the next day, and he sees the tombstone. Okay. Pulls over, puts a tombstone in the squad car, drives back to the police station, takes the tombstone out, puts it against the wall outside, goes in, files a police report just to see like what he did. Comes out, it's gone. It's like, okay, it's a prank, whatever.
You know they have tombstones that are getting washed out to sea too in Leeville.
Yeah, that's why they put that little, that whole cemetery. They covered it with concrete, but some of the graves had sank.
And there's some that's underneath the bridge too, like where the big overpass is. There was a little spot.
I did a whole episode on Louisiana Dread.
Yeah, you're standing right by it. Yeah.
It's unreal, man, to see that, and it's sad because it's like, the fuck.
Isn't it called Orange Grove or used to be?
Yeah, the whole. I mean, it's buku orange plantations, citrus of all kinds. So, after that, the cop finishes his report and goes about his day. That night, deputies just doing patrols in the area. He comes up on the tombstone in the middle of the road by the cemetery. And apparently this dude was superstitious, or he had read like the reports before and he knew like what the deal was or something, because he didn't get out his car. He was scared as fuck.
Stay in here.
Exactly. Which I don't blame the dude. But he put the bullseye on the tombstone and started writing his report in the squad car. And he's writing it, and he looks up, and that fucking tombstone is not in the middle of the road. It is now leaned up against the cemetery.
He didn't see it move. It was just...
He looked down. He was writing a report, and he just looks up when he's finished, and it's across, and it's leaning up against the gateway of the cemetery. Now, it was late at night. Nobody had drove by, or so that's the end of that officer's night. He left when he saw that. And then finally, all this zombie is happening about this tombstone. Imagine yourself being the sheriff, and you got whatever you're doing, probably drugs on the side, and your deputies are talking about this tombstone, and you're like, what the fuck? Okay,
I can't have this going on in town.
Or whatever. Like, I'm tired of hearing about this fucking tombstone. What are you talking about? That's what I would say if I was a sheriff doing a bunch of drugs or something. I'm not saying he did. I'm just kind of throwing that in as that's what some sheriffs do. You never know. Anyway, this sheriff takes it upon himself. He's like, all right, fuck this, I'm going to check it out. So he drives, goes to the cemetery. Whenever it was a few days later. He sees that tombstone in there. He picks it up, puts it in the squad car, goes back to the station, puts it in the shed, goes and tries to phone call the caretaker because he wants to find out more about the family, because
whose tombstone
it was, yeah, and like what was going on here. So he gets in touch with the caretaker, and the caretaker's like, yeah, absolutely, whatever you need. And now, again, this is back in the 80s. They didn't have like cell phones and stuff, so he's talking to this caretaker, and the caretaker's like, yeah, I'm gonna come meet me at the cemetery in about 30 minutes, and I'll show you where, we'll look and try to find it ourselves. It's like, all right. Hangs up the phone, leaves the sheriff's station. He's like, I'm leaving that damn tombstone here. Gets in the car, drives, and he's heading there. Before he gets to that cemetery, he gets a radio call from the deputy back at the station that the caretaker called in and said that the tombstone is leaning against the gate in the cemetery.
Oh, God.
And he says, wait, go in that fucking shed
and see if it's there.
And see if it's in there. No tombstone in the shed. So they get to the cemetery, and they're like, what the hell's going on here? And they walk in, and the caretaker said that he looked at it, and it used to be under a tree. It was an old oak tree, and the town sometimes say it's a cursed oak tree. It has all these little, names or whatever, but it's just an oak tree. But the guy on it, I haven't found out his name. It's kind of lost throughout time, but yeah, he was very cruel to Native Americans in the area. Very, very cruel to them. And some say, like, the legend is that he was cursed for the atrocities that he did to these people. And it's definitely clear that some kind of way that tombstone was removed from that cemetery, but it wanted back in there.
That's crazy.
No plausible explanation for this.
And they don't know, like, nowadays, like, where the tombstone is, or
no, it's they removed it, and they put it into an unmarked grave from the guy's.
That's weird, because that's got to be heavy. It's got to be like 80 or 100 pounds for a tombstone. So that's not something somebody can just grab and travel 8 miles, put it on the road. When a cop looks down, grab it, move it another, 50 or 60 feet without being noticed.
Yeah. The whole family had died off by then, so there was no living descendants. And shit, dude, like, what do you do when you start seeing this kind of shit? And what if that would happen to you, like just some quizzical little thing, like an object in the road, like the guy at the beginning of the story?
I would have never touched the tombstone to begin with.
Well, of course, but you're the guy. Put yourself in the guy at the beginning of the story. You driving by, you see that tombstone, you're like, well, this is fucking weird. I'm gonna go report to somebody. It's not my problem anymore. And then this whole traka comes up, and it's this whole, haunted tree, and then it's insane to think that you could have been that passenger.
Seeing that.
Yeah.
But there's 100 ghost stories of stuff in graveyards, like when graveyards are demolished or moved, or they'll move the headstones and they don't move the actual graves. Like my father-in-law's yard, there's a graveyard, still graves in the yard right now. They just move the headstones.
Wow. Yeah. The Saints.
Yeah, the whole Superdome,
right on top of a Protestant cemetery.
That was a huge cemetery too.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that that's why the Saints sucks so bad for a long time, because it was the curse of the cemetery. It's the Girard Street Cemetery, and Louisiana was predominantly Catholic, so they just kind of degraded the Protestant graves until you had more Anglo-Americans come here, and they built that cemetery. 1840s, they still got dead bodies underneath there.
Remember that the next time you go sit in the Superdome, when they're running for the touchdown or whatever, they're running across grave sites.
They're hitting the home run or whatever they do.
In the Superdome? Yeah. Yeah, graveyards are creepy no matter what time of the day you go or why you're going.
Oh, here's something. Speaking of fucking graveyards, I read an article that I want to say it's like the Historical New Orleans Society is finally remodeling or restoring Marie Laveau's tomb. And because previously, people would go up, and this is another thing I think everybody should listen to. Don't defile any of these historical places, especially something like Marie Laveau's tomb. That whole superstition of you have to spin around 3 times and put an X on the grave, and then you make your wish, and then she'll grant it through her voodoo magic. That ain't true. That was started in the 80s by some tour guide that wanted to just kind of make the tour a little bit better or something like that. It's not true at all. So all it did was ruin the grave, and then a vandal came in one night and painted the whole thing hot pink.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, and whatever material the person used, it was just a very detrimental to the.
It's like corrosive.
Very unreal that somebody would do that. Number one. Number two, they have to strip all the paint and then repaint it and just kind of restore. They tried putting markers and stuff like that to keep people away. They tried putting cameras and stuff, but I mean, it's a small cemetery, and it's very maze-like. So tombs block entranceways, and you can't see. It's this big old cemetery. If you've been to New Orleans, you know that.
I would think if you do anything to a gravesite, you're definitely not getting your wishes granted. You're probably getting a curse or some very bad luck for all of eternity, if not for that week for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And the same thing happened similar in Lafayette Cemetery in New Orleans, because they opened it up to the public, and then people started taking Instagram photos in the graves. So they were like
laying down in the graves
in the sarcophagus, in the mausoleum graves.
Not a good idea.
No, not at all. They probably got so much glee on them right now.
I wouldn't even shake their hand.
Hell no. And then they shut it down because they gotta clean it out, and it just one bad apple ruins it for the bunch. So don't do that kind of shit.
Don't touch grave sites.
Ever. And then when they were building the levee on the Mississippi River, they have that cemetery in St. James, I believe, that they had to dig up all those bodies because it was right next to the river to build the levee, because it was dredging everything. They found cannonballs. That'd have been a good day for you to take out your fucking
metal detector.
Yeah, I mean back in 1927. Yeah, but dude, all the shit that they found, just like, because boats will just collapse, and they'll just knock off their cargo right by the river.
No telling what was in there.
Yeah, and then stuff that floated down. Who knows?
What's been popping, brothers? I heard you caught some fish yesterday. Today.
Yesterday, me and girlfriend took a fishing trip out to
By the
Pornichet.
way, I saw a picture of your girlfriend. She's hot.
Thank you.
Congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, give a little clap for that.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we went to Pornichet, just the typical getting out. We were fishing in some duck ponds back there. Sure enough, started raining on us. Like pouring down, just out of nowhere. So we just sitting underneath a little umbrella in this pond, relaxing. So once the rain cleared out, we kind of moved around a bit, caught some redfish, took them home, grilled them up today, and that was my day so far. How about you guys?
Grilled redfish is so good.
Oh, it's
I
fire.
love that.
Best fried catfish po' boy I've had in a long time, and I think it's the best in the, especially even like in New Orleans. It's not even in New Orleans. It's in Vacherie. B&C Seafood. This ain't an ad. This is straight up one of the best because it's all like the Zalman's catfish. Yeah, and they, oh man, they whip them up. I had it today for lunch. That's why I keep thinking about it.
Is it because of the fish is fresh, or the way they fry it, or is it the bread?
Yes,
All of them.
they make their own bread.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in house. So
Because look, you could have some badass fried fish, but if the bread sucks or if it's stale, then
yeah, it's poo poo. Speaking of Ponachet, they had some people launched out of there the other day, and I wanted to hop on there, but I didn't end up not doing it, to go to Last Island. That's a place, man. Get a chance to go that way, jump on that area.
So I've never been to Last
what's the
Island.
history about it?
Man, wait, how much time you got? What you have to say something?
So I've never been. My family's been, and they go gigging flounder on the island. So my father passed away when I was 2 years old. He was 21, so I never really knew him. So I always hear stories about all the crazy stuff they did with the family. So there's a story. My uncle was with him. They were gigging flounder during the nighttime on Last Island, and they gigged a shark.
Your
And-
dad?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
he
he
was a
couldn't
wild
get
one, for sure.
a wild one. So he couldn't get it up. So my uncle, being like, oh, I could do that. Gets up, pulls the shark up, and it turns around and bites a chunk out his ass.
Oh, damn.
Sends him to the hospital. Yeah.
Oh,
Damn. They just found a bull shark on Grand Isle.
really?
Yeah, they pulled that motherfucker out of the
How
water.
big was it?
It was about 4 feet. I don't know if y'all saw. You saw the
They're
picture.
pretty aggressive, too.
Yeah.
They tend to be.
2 of them they found in St. Louis, swam up the Mississippi River.
In fresh water?
Insane. What's going on?
I don't know.
But you asked about the history of Last Island.
Yeah.
It was insane. Like, it was basically like Grand Isle.
Pirates and crazy people.
No, it was like Grand Isle in the resort era. I'm sorry.
The rich folks.
The
and
super rich, like big, fancy houses. Because this is where, people in New Orleans, like the elites, would go to Grand Isle, but they'd also go to Last Island. They started, going to these little resort island towns in Louisiana. And this is when Louisiana had more than just Grand Isle. And at that time, Grand Isle was more, I'd say, pirate-centric, as opposed to, because the resort era didn't hit them yet. It was all pirates and stuff like this, 1840s, 1850s. Then Last Island, Isla Dernière, that whole island just became a big resort town.
And that was at the same time?
Yeah. But when yellow fever started hitting, and this was like 1856, I want to say, they had a really bad epidemic of yellow fever. So nobody wants to stay in the fucking city. So where you gonna go? You gonna go to Pirate Grand Isle and get fucking robbed, mugged?
Party?
Tarpon Rodeo didn't exist then.
Dude, it's going on right now.
Yes.
I sent $27,000 worth of product over there, and I guarantee the shelves are empty right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Not to get off the subject. Let's go.
No, that's fine. Fun fact about Grand Isle, though. Normal population, average living people there, roughly about 1,000. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Right now, during the summertime, and this is peak summer, it'll swell to about 20,000 people
Wow.
living on Grand Isle. So anyway, back to Last Island. So they, elites and stuff, they all come into Last Island, and specifically in 1856, because that's when the big epidemic was hitting. Now, mind you, 3 years before was the biggest epidemic of yellow fever, and that killed 40,000 people in the area alone. Just so people are obviously traumatized by this event. They want to get the fuck out, but they go to this island and start partying, weather's beautiful, but they don't have any ways to pick up hurricanes before they hit. And it was, it's one of the worst natural disasters still in United States history today. It's called the Last Island Hurricane. And there's a book about it called Island in the Storm, which if you like to read, I thoroughly recommend. Anyone who asks me about a book to read, I recommend that. It is a heart-crushing historical factual narrative about a few families that were on the island. So it's like a Game of Thrones style. You follow multiple characters, and it's all written by the survivors. Accounts, their testimony. Like when they would get, after they did this, they would always write in their journal, and this is all taken from their journals. Historical man, it is insane. They talk about how this freak storm hit, and they just built this brand new big ass resort, and the roof flies off, all the walls fall off, people are just hanging onto the base and the foundation, and the water is coming up. I mean, these are when the houses were maybe 5 feet above the ground on pylons. They weren't 10 foot like we got right now.
So the water probably came like over the roof, maybe?
No, it wouldn't have been over the roof, but it was.
3,
I think
4
they said
foot?
about it would have been over the roof. It was a 15-foot tidal surge or something like that.
Jesus.
10 15-foot tidal surge.
Now, when they say a tidal surge, is that just the water coming up, or is that one big wave?
One wave after another. It's the constant push of waves.
And it just keeps getting
Correct.
more and more.
It just keeps flowing at that.
How
at that height.
terrifying.
Man, bruh.
You trying to save like maybe one of your family, because I'm sure that's in there. You're trying to save one of your family members, and then another wave comes and just pushes them another 40 yards away from you, and then you just kind of watch
just
them
a
disappear.
constant push like that. Not like a tsunami where it's like smaller waves and then they build up and get bigger. This is just a straight force of 15-foot waves just nonstop.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would be a terrifying movie.
Then that's what I want to go out there and do, kind of location scout, see what we'd be able to film out there. But even after the storm hit, people are just spread out all over the water and all over the marsh. And one account, these people were on a raft for days just waiting for help because there's no help coming. They're in the middle of a marsh, and this is before you got
No telephones.
nothing, literally nothing. So they're just in this wasteland, and they're like, we don't know what direction to go in. One of the worst account, I'm not going to spoil the whole book in case people want to read, but actually I will spoil it because you could just put us on pause now. All right, so that being said, if you don't want the book spoiled for you, it's not really a big spoil, it's just one character. I'm not going to say who, but I mean, he's basically in all the chaos of the storm. It knocks him and his daughter, she was about 4, 5, maybe 6 years old, in the water, and the water's rushing. He's holding on to a tree as the water's rushing, and they get pinned up against some floating barrels, some casks are floating down, and it pins them up, and he goes under because the child is pulling him with it, it's too weak, and he's going under, and he lets go of the child, but she's still holding on to his arm, and he grabs her fingers and just slides it off his hand.
Oh my! And that was his kid.
That was his kid.
Oh my God.
His daughter. All 8 of his children died. He's the only one of the family that survived.
I'd have killed myself.
He saw all of the children drown.
Jesus.
And the wife. And he was responsible for 2 of them for drowning because he just...
Jesus. Talk about start fresh.
Imagine
Right.
living with that.
And
Yeah,
he came back to... He was... actually, he's buried in Plaquemine along the river, a little bit further up from Donaldsonville. And I mean, we went to see the grave just to see who they were, and it's crazy because it was just him, his grave, and then the family grave, and then his other family's grave. When he got back, he remarried and had more kids.
Started another family.
Yeah, and then it was like lost in the last island, or the Isla Dernière hurricane, 1856. You could see a bunch of graves in that Fontaine Cemetery, all right there.
The graves in Cheniere are the same thing. Like, you could see all the different family members are all dead on the same day from the Cheniere hurricane. And they found, I think they found a little girl that was like hanging in a tree from her hair. Because her hair had got caught in a tree and she was dead hanging in the...
Yeah, because while the water was rushing, it was pushing her through the branches, and her hair got caught up there, and she drowned.
Did you hear the story about the treasure chest that 2 girls had found, and then some guys came along? Oh, no. We did talk about that, because I blamed it on your family.
Yes, you did. Yes,
Sorry.
it was. It hurt.
Yeah.
But let's move past it.
Thank you for listening to Ghosts of the Coast, a DSR production.